The movie kicks off with this guy, Frank. He's ex-Special Forces working as a driver hauling shady cargo. But for real, 3 major rules. Rule number 1, he never changes the tweaks. Rule 2, no names, period. He doesn't know yours. You don't know his. Rule 3, he never opens the package he's dropping off. It's to these 3 rules and never breaks any of them, no matter what. So today, he hops in his ride and heads out because he's got a delivery to make. So Frank pulls up in front of a bank where some robbers are hitting it up, and he's waiting there to be their getaway driver. He doesn't give a damn anyway about what he's hauling or what's in the package. A few minutes later, 4 robbers rush out of the bank and hop into Frank. As soon as they're in, Frank hits a button and flips. Once they're all in, the leader demands Frank to floor it before the cops show up. But they're all shook when Frank because the deal was he tells them those are his rules and they don't change for nobody. So they start off by threatening to, but Frank tells them the car needs a password to start. And no matter what they do, so the leader starts begging Frank and offers him mad cash to get moving. But Frank stands his ground till the very end, until the leader's forced to take out one of his own guys and tosses him out the whip and tells Frank to get moving. So Frank finally agrees to roll out. He punches in the code and the whip starts moving. Right then, the cops show up and spot him. So they start chasing him down fast with a bunch of cruisers. But Frank's a total pro behind the wheel. Even so, the cops manage to box Frank in on the 3 thieves lose hope and think they're but Frank straight up jumps his car off the bridge. He manages to lose the cops after a long-ass chase. Then Frank drops the thieves off at the spot they agreed on. The leader hands Frank his cash, plus a little extra on top. He says they want him to take him to a specific area, but Frank hands the extra cash back to the leader. He says he doesn't change the deal or make any. So the leader and his crew hop out and grab a regular taxi to get where they're going. Meanwhile, Frank switches his plates back to normal and heads out. Then Frank gets back home and starts scrubbing the car clean. Next day, Frank sees a news report on TV about the 3 thieves he was inclined up. He dropped him off yesterday because the taxi driver they hopped in with, he ended up crashing and the cops showed up and busted him. While Frank's watching the news, someone interrupts him by knocking on the door. When Frank goes to open up, he sees Tarcone's actually a cop, and he's always been suspicious of Frank. Mostly because he's so low-key, and Tarcone tells Frank that a car with a safe and that they couldn't catch the license plate number. So he's here to check out Frank. Frank stays cool and confident. He tells him to go ahead and check the plates. So he sees for himself that the plates don't match the car he's looking for. So Tarcone apologizes and says he'll swing by. Frank tells him he's always welcome. Then Frank gets a call from someone who wants a delivery done. So Frank goes to meet the guy. He finds out he wants him to drop off a mystery package at a specific address. Frank agrees and starts laying down his 3 and they start hashing out the details. Next day rolls around and Frank goes to the guy's crew shows up and tosses the package into Frank's trunk. Then they head out and Frank doesn't even peek at the package. Frank heads to the drop-off, but on the way, he catches a flat. So Frank's got to pull over to swap out the tire. Frank goes to pop the trunk to grab the spare. Right then, Frank's shocked to see the package in his car actually moving. Frank realizes the package he's hauling has a whole person inside. Even then, Frank doesn't trip, because one of his rules is that he never. So Frank swaps his tire and keeps it moving like he. Then Frank pulls over to chill and grab a bite. So Frank grabs a drink and heads back to pop the trunk. After hesitating, he decides to break his rule and open the package. He finds a gorgeous girl. He doesn't untie her or anything. He just lets her have a sip of the drink he bought. Then he takes the drink back and stuffs her back. He locks her in, hops in his car. On the road, he notices she's wilding out. So he pulls over and he tells her not to scream or he'll kill her. He rips the tape. Lai tells him she really needs to hit the bathroom. Frank pulls out a rope and ties it around her neck. He lets her head into the woods to do her business. A few minutes later, he follows the rope to see. He finds she tied the rope to a tree and dipped. Frank goes looking for her ASAP, and after a long search, he tracks her down. Frank grabs her and takes her back to the car, and he's absolutely fuming. But plot twist, he runs into 2 cops checking out his ride. As soon as the cops see Frank carrying Lai, all tied up like she's been snatched, they charge. But Frank handles both of them. After that, Frank heads. He meets the guy who's taking the package and hands it over. The guy asks him if he peeked inside to see what's in the pack, but Frank tells him he doesn't open package. Still, the guy's not buying what he asks him to handle another. So Frank locks it in and they agree on all the details. Frank grabs the package and the cash and bounces. So Frank hits up a restaurant to chill and grab a bite before dropping off the new package. Right before he gets back to his ride, it suddenly blows up. That's when Frank realizes the guy actually gave him a bomb to take him out. So Frank heads back to the guy's place and starts wiping out his crew one by one. He's looking for the big boss, but he's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Lai takes advantage of the gang being busy with Frank and tries to escape. Once Frank's done with the goons, he jacks a car from the garage and peels out. After Frank gets some distance, he's shocked. He slams the brakes and kicks her out of the car. He leaves her on the side of the road, so he changes his mind, goes back, and tosses her back in the car, still tied up. And he just keeps going. Frank takes her to his crib, unties her, and whips up some lunch. Then he just leaves her be and goes to crash. Meanwhile, we see the gang. He's visiting one of his goons in the hospital asking who jumped him and did him like that. The guy tells him the driver didn't die in the blast. Next day rolls around and we see Frank just waking up, and he's shocked to find Lee making him breakfast. So Frank sits down to eat, totally weirded. But the real kicker for Frank is when Tarconi shows house. When he asks Frank about Lee, Frank tells him she's his new personal chef. Since he lives alone and doesn't have anyone to so he decided to hire a chef. Then Tarconi asks about his car cause it's not parked out. Frank tells him his ride got jacked yesterday. He says he was just about to get dressed and head to. Tarconi tells him his car actually blew up and it had 2 dead. Frank tells him he's got no. Tarconi says he believes him but wants, since he's the one. Plus, he wants to ask them both some questions. After he leaves, Frank and Lai. Frank starts feeling like something. Suddenly, Street and his crew fire a rocket at Frank's house. Then Street's guys start lighting up Frank's house non-stop. But Frank and Lai. That's cause Frank rushes Lai down to the basement. From there, they hit the sewers and escape through the water without getting spotted. After a long swim, they finally make it out of there. They both head to the precinct to talk. Tarconi had already seen Frank's house. He starts grilling Frank and Lai about what. So Frank tells him he just went. And when they got back, so Tarconi asks him about the gun. So he tells him he was out with Lai, just like he's got no. Right then, Tarconi's boss calls him in. Once Tarconi's gone, Lai hops on his computer and starts digging for the name of the boss of the gang they're chasing, until they find some dirt on the gang leader and find out his name is Street. Meanwhile, Tarconi's heading back to his office. When he gets back, he finds Lai sitting next to Frank like nothing's even up. Tarconi lets them both leave, but when he opens his and he sees, at that point, Lai's asking Frank to come with her so they can go find this Street guy. But Frank shuts her down, so Lai tells him there's a ship moving out and those 400 people are gonna be. Plus, her dad and brothers are among the. And the only guy who can get him to that ship, that hits Frank hard. So he decides to go save. Later, while Street's just walking into his office, Frank starts beating on Street while keeping a. Meanwhile, Lai starts digging through the file. Then Street tells Lai her. Frank's shook cause she told him her dad was. Street tells him she was straight up. Then she pulls a gun on Frank. Right then, this guy named Kwai walks in. And Kwai tries to calm his once she puts it down, but he stops him at the last second when they realize He's there to grill Street and find out. So he has one of Street's goons. When Tarconi walks into the office, Street and Kwai tell him to bust Frank, claiming he's the one who kidnapped, saying he brought Lie to shake him down for cash, but they handled him. So Tarconi's got to arrest Frank while he's out, and he takes him away. But Tarconi's 100% sure something's fishy about the whole thing. When Frank wakes up at the station, Frank tells him about the ship and the 400 people who got snatched. Frank asks Tarconi to let him bounce from the station, so he can save those people before they end up as slaves. Frank tells him if he gets out of the precinct, he can save those people ASAP. But the cops are gonna take way too long. So Tarconi's down, and Dean pretending just so he can bust out of. And for real, Frank manages. Then he goes and grabs a small and heads straight for the ships. Once he gets there, he starts one by one. Once Street and they decide to pivot. They grab the containers full of people and load them onto trucks instead of the ship. Then they roll out behind the trucks to cover them. So they head out with with Street, Kwai, and their goons surrounding them for backup. Meanwhile, Frank keeps wiping out Street and Kwai's goons at the spot, and he manages to smoke them all. Then Frank hops in a car to chase down, but his whip stalls out and he happens to spot. So Frank goes and presses the farmer. He jumps out with a parachute and lands right on one of the container trucks. He tosses the chute over the car with their goons and makes them crash and wipes out the squad. Then Frank hops in the truck he landed on after tossing the driver out and finishing him, but he's shocked to see Streets in the same truck and they see each other. After a long chase and a brawl, the truck and finishes him. When Frank pulls the truck over, he's stunned to see Kwai's got a gun on him, so Frank's forced to play along, and he keeps going wherever Kwai tells him to, until Kwai gets him to the top of the mountain. Seconds before he pulls the trigger, Kwai gets shot. When he looks to see who did it, he realizes it's his daughter. Kwai's dead, so Frank goes over to hug her. He calms her down. Right then, Tarconi and they free all the hostages. And just like that, Frank pulled off the mission. He saved those 400 people from slavery. Don't forget to drop your